What's good, family? Welcome to another episode of Ro Lamb Live. I am your host. My name is Ro Lamb, and I am here with my guy Frank Martin. Frank, how you feeling today, man?
Feeling good. I'm feeling good. I like these like summer spring days that are longer, so it's 7 o'clock and it's still sunny out. So it's like
For sure, for
feel like
sure.
getting something out of it.
Yes, yes. So we're a little bit late tonight. Well, I guess I
Well,
usually go on at
but
9.
technically we're early.
Yes, we're taking it early, but I told you 7. It's a little bit after 7. I always come in a little bit late, but today I had opportunity to read one of Frank's newest comic books that's going to be coming out later this year. I guess next month now. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about writing. We'll talk about creativity. But before we do that, I love to start with my first question. Frank, what is inspiring you right now? What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? All of the above, or just some of it, or anything, whatever it is.
I'm getting inspired by Star Trek.
Okay.
So I was not a Star Trek guy growing up. I was Star Wars guy. I didn't watch any of the shows. I think I watched some of the movies. But I guess recently I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get into this Star Trek thing because I watched the Orville, which is kind of like a Star Trek knockoff a little bit. It's like Star Trek. So I'm like, let me. I saw the knockoff. Let me see the original. And I did the new shows, and now I'm watching Deep Space Nine, and I love it because it covers so many different things. You know, it covers so many different subjects, but it always approaches it from like a sci-fi angle. So it feels so familiar. You got father and son relationships, friendships that last through time, honor, pride, jealousy, greed. It deals with all these base emotions, and they just throw it in space with aliens. So it's really cool to see all of these human storylines playing out in a sci-fi arena. And so watching it gets my juices flowing.
For sure. Which one did you say you were watching?
I'm watching Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
It's like early nine. I mean, I guess it's 30 years old now.
Yeah.
And it's wild because I'm watching Star Trek basically backwards. So I was watching Discovery, which was the show that just ended its final season.
Yeah.
And so I'll watch an episode and they'll deal with some like weird Star Trek aspect, like some ritual. And then I'll watch a Deep Space Nine episode the next day. And then they'll do the same ritual that they started 30 years ago. It's like, I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio in that meme where he's pointing at the TV.
Right.
Like, I know that one.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm watching it backwards, but it's cool to see the overlap. How 30 years later they're still going through all these same tropes and characters and races and stuff. So it's nice.
Have you seen the newest movies with like Chris Pine and I guess they're not?
I did. I mean, they haven't made a new one in a while.
Yeah.
You know what I thought they were enjoyable but forgettable.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, they were good. They were fine. I can't. If you ask me to recall them, I don't remember a whole lot. Especially the newest one, which was like Star Trek Beyond, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
The first one was cool because they tried to do that whole reboot, but not a reboot thing.
Yeah.
I like that. Mortal Kombat did that too.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. They had Raiden travel back in time, so they rebooted it, but it was like the same thing but different. It's like whatever. But
right.
I dig that idea of starting fresh but keeping it going.
Yeah. I personally, I love those movies. And I think, I grew up watching, Star Trek, The Next Generation with Captain Picard and, watching it with my family. And so, I don't know, just the whole world of Star Trek just really, it felt really nostalgic to me, watching Spock and just watching that,
I got to rewatch them now that I've absorbed more Star Trek lore.
Yeah.
I should revisit them. So it's always nice to see something with a fresh perspective.
Yeah, and I also really like Chris Pine. I think Chris Pine is really good in the things that he's in.
He's got this charisma to him. This obnoxiously handsome charisma that you can't help but just like when he's on the screen. He did it in the Wonder Woman movies too.
Yep. So for myself, Grand Theft Auto has me in a chokehold right now. Like
what are you playing? Which one?
I'm playing 5 online.
Okay.
And so I used to play like when I was young, I started playing, I think around 3. And then I just, stopped playing for whatever reason. And so I've been seeing for the last couple of years, for the last couple of years, I've been seeing, the online commercials. And I'm like,
I get fed them all day too.
Yeah, I'm like, I should try this. And I tried it probably, let me see. My wife got me a PS5 in December for Christmas. And ever since then, I've been hooked. I've been hooked. Just, running through the city and watching people fight. And man, it's just, it's been engrossing, to say the least.
Grand Theft Auto has some surprisingly good writing.
You know what? That's exactly what I was thinking. As I was playing, I was like, who is writing these storylines? Who's putting this together?
No, it's weird because I remember when it first came on the scene, I'm like you. When I started playing 3, I was like, my mind was blown.
Yeah.
And then 3 had a pretty decent story. It was about a guy trying to get back at his girlfriend for betraying him.
Right.
But the main character was silent. And then Vice City was when I really was like, I played that game. I practically broke the disc. I was playing so much.
Right.
You had Ray Liotta voicing the main character in 1980s Miami, essentially.
Yep.
Seeing porn stars and coke dealers. It was like a little. It was great, but it was intricate characters, in-depth storylines. So the parents made a big fuss about it. Oh, you're beating up hookers and doing all this stuff, but it was like really good storytelling. So it was engrossing.
Yeah,
there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, and what's crazy about this is being online. I feel like they just take it to a whole other level, because it's not just you running around trying to blow people up. You actually have like different like missions around the city. Mm-hmm. So you do this mission and you get caught up in this whole storyline in this part of the city, right? And then you do this mission over here and you're caught up in that storyline in that part of the city. It's just. And then you go to the casino. There's a whole storyline there. I mean, it's engrossing.
You know what it feels like? It kind of feels like Westworld. You watch Westworld on HBO?
Yeah.
Where it's like you just go to different parts of the city and then you get engrossed in whatever storyline they have designed for you.
Yeah, and it's perfect too, because think about like all these crime shows, right? Breaking Bad, Snowfall, Power, right? You go down the list of these crime shows. When you play Grand Theft Auto, you're basically, one of these characters running around trying to figure out how to get your money up. Oh, I lost I bought this car. I got to do this. I got to do that. So I'm trying to get to like my $10 million, but I keep seeing, I got to get this new car. I got to get that. Okay, so that means I got to start my acid lab. I got to sell more acid. I got to do this.
They got you hook, line, and sinker.
I have like 5 different businesses. So I'm like going from business to business, throwing people out of the club. Then I'm going over to the auto shop, fixing cars. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird how they do that. They have a big storyline, but they got all these little side quests or odd jobs. And before you know it, you're like working as a bouncer at a club, and you're like, honey, I got work. I gotta work. I got things. I gotta log on. I'm on. It's my shift.
Right. Okay, and then the other thing that they have that's really cool is you can play solo or you can play like with friends, right? So you and your friend, I don't have any friends who play GTA right now, but you can have friends and y'all can like do the missions together, right? And be like building this. It's just incredible. It's incredible.
They definitely do a good job with their games. And what's wild is that GTA 5 came out years ago and they still got it going. New online missions and everything. When you have a robust community, it helps.
And you can do that. And then the other thing is, and this is the last thing I'll say, and we can move on with the interview. They have
this has become a Grand Theft Auto interview.
Yes. So they do updates, right? So they'll have like this mission this week, and then the next week it'll be a whole new storyline mission that you can be a part of, right? Yeah. So they just keep just re-upping. You know what I'm saying? So
as long as they got that cash coming in, they'll keep it going for as long as they can.
And then 6 comes out in 2025. So I'm like really interested to see how they amp it up even more and what they do. So anyway, I've been hooked. That's what I've been doing. That's all I've been doing really. Playing GTA, writing a little bit. That's pretty much it. Oh, the other thing is I have a con this weekend, so I'm excited about that. I'm going to Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, I hear that's a good one.
Yeah, it was great last year. And so I'll be back there again this year. Excited to see some people that I know, see some people I don't know, meet some new people. So I think it's gonna be a good time. So just prepping for that, getting all my materials ready, my books and all those things. So I'm not like you though. I only have 2 books. You have like you got like 30 books in the
I got a lot of
library, in the catalog.
It got to the point where when I first started doing cons, I was like, I need more books on my table. And now I'm at the point where like I can't bring everything. So what am I gonna bring? I gotta
right.
So yeah, it's definitely cool.
So let me ask you this.
Mindset.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: when you're introducing yourself or you're pitching yourself, right? How do you describe yourself to people?
I describe myself as a storyteller. So I say, what do you like? Tell me what you like, and I'll tell you what I've written that you might enjoy.
Yeah.
And it didn't used to always be like that. I mean, I always liked stuff. I just didn't have enough stuff to show people.
Mm-hmm.
But I've reached a comfortable level where if somebody says, I like superhero books, I got a superhero book. I like horror. Okay, what type of horror? I like fantasy. Right. So, and it's when you're at a con, it's a weird innate ability that not everybody has. My dad is a salesman. He's very charismatic. You have to be able to read people a little bit, see what they're into, what they like. And it's awesome when you hit it off with other people at cons who compliment you well at a different table, because they'll start talking to you and they say, I like this. And be like, I don't have something for you, but go next door. And you start feeding off your own energy. You're sending people your way. And when you and other people at a con around you are having a good time, it lightens the atmosphere. It makes the people that are passing by you have a good time, and they're more likely to buy something.
Yeah. So last year at Heroes, it was crazy because we somehow set it up so that it was 4 or 5 of us, and we all had our tables lined up next to each other, and we knew each other beforehand. Mm-hmm. So exactly what you just said. Somebody would come to my table, and I would just pass them down the line, and they would just go down, and the other tables would do the same thing. They would just come down. And so that cohesiveness, that camaraderie, if you will, sort of built, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Even if you don't know them beforehand, you can build that neighborhood, if you will, you know what I'm saying?
It's, what it is, people want to feel relaxed, So if you're relaxed, you're chatting with the people next to you, you're cracking jokes back and forth, they're going to relax. And then the con becomes a good time. It doesn't become a whole bunch of sales pitches one after another,
Exactly.
It becomes more of a party, and when people are at a party, they smile. And when people smile, they like spending money. So
yeah. So did you, and I guess staying on this topic of, salesmanship and being at cons, what was that transition like for you in terms of like going from the writer, the storyteller, to then having to sell it? Like, did that come naturally for you, or did you really have to put work into that?
I mean, I worked as a salesman for a while. Like I said, my dad's got it, so I got his DNA. It felt natural, but I don't like doing it. I don't think I think it's rare to find a writer who likes doing it. I mean, I can do it. I know a bunch of writers who are phenomenal at it. It's just I'm an introvert with charismatic DNA. I feel like, I would, if I had the ability to just sit in a dark room all day and just write and just hand it to somebody and tell them to go sell it, I would love to do that.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a flip side to that, and the flip side is when you do sell a book to somebody and then they reach out to you and they say, "Man, that was awesome." Having that sales connection and then having that feedback come back, I mean, that's kind of a euphoria that you don't really replicate anywhere else.
Yeah. I think for me, I had to reframe the way I thought about selling my book. It of course I want the financial exchange, but it's really about giving people an opportunity to engage with the work that I've written. You know what I'm saying? And I think when I figured that piece out, the salesmanship of it became easier, because it's like, okay, I'm not just trying to sell you something. I'm trying to share my life, my work with you. You know what I'm saying?
So one of the things I've learned as a salesman is talk about anything but money, right? Mm-hmm. Don't talk about your kids, talk about where you live, talk about sports you like. You could even talk about the work. Just talk to connect with them on a human level, because when you start talking about money, a business transaction, puts people off. People don't want to feel like that. They don't
Yeah.
want to feel like they're, especially at an artist alley that's meant to be small and informal. People want to talk to creators. You know, they don't
Yeah.
want to talk to a salesman. So
Yeah.
connect with them on some sort of human, personal level. It goes a long way. And even if you don't make the sale, you still have more of a memory in that person's mind, and who knows where that comes down the line.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as long as you approach these interactions as forming some sort of connection on whatever level, it makes it that much easier to sell them work.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When did you know that you wanted to be, or that you were a storyteller? And when did it go from being, I'm assuming that is no longer a hobby, but when did it go from being just a hobby to I'm actually like gonna try to monetize?
Gonna do this thing.
Yeah.
I think I was always a storyteller. And I think kids have that imagination just built into them. Kids are constantly imagining things. They play make-believe. And I just never stopped doing that, you know, especially when you start consuming media and you love video games and movies and you fall in love with these characters and you start imagining your own storylines that you would write for them. Fan fiction is how so many writers it got introduced to storytelling. And I just never stopped doing that. I wrote fan fiction. I wrote my own stories. And I mean, I tried to put them out, get people's feedback, but I would say, like the word you used was monetize. I think the first time I truly tried to monetize it was when my first son was born. Like I look at, he was born in 2012, 2013. I was like, you know what? I've been writing all my life. I've never written a full novel length work. In 2013, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to tell myself, write a chapter a week, get the novel done, try to get it published. Still not published, it's sitting on my computer, even though I've had tons of other stuff published. But the having a child it made me want to do this thing that I loved and just show them that, you know what, I'm going to try to do it. You know, I'm going to try to put my effort into making some sort of career out of it.
Yeah.
Fail or succeed, I want to be able to show him that I gave it a go.
And so what was that transition like when you say, okay, I'm gonna do this, you know what I'm saying? And it's no longer just I'm just sort of playing around anymore. It's like I'm really trying to make this a thing. What was that transition like for you?
I think everything was pretty much the same except for the introduction of discipline. You know, it's when you're doing it for fun, you're doing it for yourself, you're doing it as a hobby, it's just up in the air. You know, I write when I have time. I can write whatever I want. I don't have to think about marketing and publishers and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But when you want to pound at work and you want to get it out there and you want to monetize it, publish it, sell it, you got to be strict about your writing.
Yeah.
You know? So like I said, I was like, I'm going to write a chapter a week. Some chapters are long, some chapters are short, but I know as long as I stick to this schedule for myself, I'm going to have a finished work at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, and that I've loosened up the deadlines for myself simply because I think self-imposed deadlines are a double-edged sword. They're good because they keep yourself on track, but if you don't hit them, they become a burden, you know, and there's no burden that's being placed on you except for yourself. So that mental health aspect of things, like, you know, it's okay to slide for a week, maybe not for 3, but it's definitely a give and take as far as being disciplined, but not hard on yourself.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you started out writing a novel. You started out writing prose first.
I did start writing prose first.
So how did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm trying to recall how it worked. So I wrote comics. All right. So in college, I took a comic writing class. It wasn't part of college. It was like some online class. I just happened to be in college when I was doing it.
Oh, gotcha.
And I wrote a short story because I loved writing, but I never written any comics before. And it was a short story, and it just sat on my computer for a couple of years. And then that's kind of the same thing kind of happened where my son was born. And I'm like, you know what? I have this script on my computer. The same way that I said I want to finish a novel, I was like, I want to get this thing illustrated. I want to put out a comic book.
Yeah.
And it became a process because I can't just finish a short story. And that's how my first book, Modern Testament, got done. Is that, you know what? If I have one short story, and if I have other short stories, that's a full book.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was about the same time that I decided to finally implement some sort of publishing game plan.
Okay. Yeah. So, and this might be a little technical, maybe, but the process of going from writing that prose, that novel, to now writing that comic book, right? What was that, or I guess vice versa? What was that transition like for you?
It was learning the strengths and weaknesses of each of them. You know, there's a lot of overlap as far as the basis of storytelling, you know, plot, character, setting, all that jazz. But novels are kind of like a blank canvas. You know, you can paint whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And writing a comic is more like a puzzle where you can put the pieces together however you want them, but at the end you are limited by how the pieces fit together. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure.
It was more like I need to tell a story, and I have 5 pages, X amount of panels per page, and so instead of a blank canvas, I had to fit things into a particular box. And once you figure out that trick, it became a lot easier.
Yeah.
I also went through a bit of a comic writing boot camp. You know, there was a lot of forums when I started. I don't think they're as active as much as they were, but I was fortunate in the forums that I was on. There were a bunch of writers, and every week we had a writing prompt. You know, we did nature, write a 5-page comic about nature. And we all posted them, and then we all wrote critiques about them, and then we voted who had the best script at the end of every week. Yeah. And then but they were never made. So it was kind of like we went into the next week and wrote another script. So multiply that by a couple of years. I have, I don't know, a couple dozen scripts, short stories that are just sitting on my computer. But it was a boot camp of sorts. I got torn apart by a lot of editors and writers telling me what worked, what didn't work. And after a while, you just kind of find your groove.
Yeah. And I mean, you need that. Like, you need that community. You need that that feedback on your work. You know, I feel like a lot of times as a writer, you don't really, like, for example, I write screenplays, and it's difficult to get people to read your screenplay. You know what I'm saying? And rightfully so. It takes time, it takes energy, and all those different things. But it's like, it's hard to know how to progress if you don't know what you need to work on, or you don't know what's working and what's not working. So to hear somebody say, I felt that, I didn't feel that, that gives you something that you can go back to the drawing board and say, okay, cool, this is the direction I'm gonna try. You know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of writers, and including myself, don't realize just how much you have to get beat up before you become a champion. You know, it's kind of like boxing, where nobody just starts boxing, goes in the ring, puts on the gloves, and just goes for it. You know, you gotta get in the ring and take some hit. You gotta get in the practice ring and take some hits before you're ready for showtime. So it's,
and even before that, you gotta learn how to throw a punch.
It builds. And a lot of writers, when they first starting out, they just throw themselves right in the ring. Yeah. And they take a couple hits and they get knocked down, and they see stars, and they're like, what happened? You know? So you definitely got to take some lumps first.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and switching gears a little bit, I think I've emailed you about this before, your prolificness as a writer. You know, I feel like, you know, just over the years that I've watched your career and watched, you know, your trajectory, you know, I think even before we got on here, you said I forget how you said it, but you were talking about, like, there's always a Kickstarter ending or one getting ready to start.
You said you got one coming up. I was like, I'm either in 2 modes, one coming up or one going on.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it. So
let me ask you this. How do you keep yourself motivated?
How do I keep myself motivated? I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah.
I just like stories. And you know what? It helps. One of my strengths is also one of my great weaknesses. And a lot of times it's hard building an audience when you're bouncing around different genres all the time, different stories. I put out a lot of different titles, and it's hard building that audience. But at the same time, it keeps my creativity fresh, in that I'm just not working on the same characters and story one after another. I'm bouncing all around. Everything is new and different and challenging. And I think that's what kind of motivates me, is the challenge of it all. If somebody tells me I can't do something, I'm motivated to try and pull that story off, you know? Yeah. So that challenge, that puzzle of it is definitely a good motivation.
Yeah. And so I'm glad you said that, because that brings me to something I was thinking about. I think you posted, I don't know when you posted this, but you posted about a gothic horror idea that you wrote, and I think you said like it didn't really take off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a book called I kickstarted it last year, and it's one of those books where like it's not Kickstarter's market. Like you kind of know that it's not gonna hit, but I don't put out stories that I don't like, that don't resonate with me, that I hope will resonate with other people.
Yeah.
This was about a 17th century painter who is depressed after his wife died, and a wealthy patron comes to him and says, I want to hire you. And I want to hire you to go find this mythical pigment, mythical paint or something. I forget what it was in the story, but it's supposed to bring paintings to life.
Oh.
And he's like, I don't want to do it. And then eventually the guy convinces him, and it becomes this, I don't want to say toxic relationship, but the patron that hires him doesn't have his best motivation at heart. You know, right. He doesn't have his best, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah,
he's not looking to help him.
Right, he's not looking out for him. Right,
he's looking out for himself. So it was about it. And you know what? Coincidentally, it just happened to launch during the writer's strike. So I was trying to tell people, look, I'm putting out this story about this wealthy patron taking advantage of this artist, and it resonated a lot with the writer's strike. But still, it's hard when you have a slow burn gothic horror story that takes place in the 17th century to sell on Kickstarter. So I often follow my muse, and I don't follow market demographics. So sometimes that's hard, but you know what? The flip side to that comment that I posted that you were talking about was my next book is about farts. So I think that's going to hit a little harder, no pun intended, with the Kickstarter audience.
Yeah. Nadia says that's something that I'd read. It feels like A Hunt for the Holy Grail mixed with The Last Kingdom.
A little bit, yeah. It's called The Art of Life. I think it's on my website. It's on Global Comics too, if you're digital reader. So yeah, check it out. I would love to hear people's feedback, because it's one of those titles when everybody calls, like says my titles, they say Frank Martin did Grim Space and Modern Testament, all these other titles that people are familiar with, and this one just like kind of slips under the radar. Nobody mentions it.
Right. So my question about that though was, so like over the years, another thing that I noticed and really admire about your work is the out of the box way that your stories, the out of box way you approach your stories, right? So you have the I'm blanking on the name, but the hotel book,
the Macabre Motel.
The Macabre Hotel, that was wild, right?
I got a sequel coming for that later this year. So
yeah. So you have something like that, right? How do you decide? And you just mentioned you don't, chase the trends. You just follow your muse, right? How do you personally decide? Okay, these are the ideas that I'm gonna chase, and these are the ideas that I'm gonna leave on the cutting room floor.
I don't know. I just kind of go for it. Every situation's different. Every project's different. That book, The Art of Life, that we were talking about, I developed that from scratch with an artist. So I bounced ideas back and forth with him, and we came up with it. Others, I have the idea, and then I go out looking for an artist that I think can fit it. It's about just what screams to you.
Yeah.
The book that you read before we came on, The Fourth Wallflower, the main character of that, Wally, who is like a character in his own right, he kind of just spoke to me. It was one of those days where I had like a million things to do, and this idea popped in my head, and it screamed to just be made, so I dropped everything I did and started writing a script. That doesn't happen often. It's rare that just that spark of inspiration hits and you just got to immediately get the idea out. So, and then I have others that I have an idea that's awesome that pops in my head, but it's stupid. So I just text it to my friend just so somebody else can be involved in my stupidity. And that's it. The idea is gone. So it's, I don't want to say it's hard, but you just got to follow that feeling, what you're passionate about. I've had stuff where I've started scripting. I got 10 pages in, and I'm like, this is not good. I don't want to keep writing this thing.
Yeah.
So I just I never throw anything away. I put it aside, and it doesn't become a priority. But yeah, it's just a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were talking, I just had this question that I wanted to ask you. How do you describe your voice as a writer or a storyteller?
That's I don't know that either, because like I said, I follow whatever's in my head, and sometimes it's not like a particular thing. I'm very curious. Everybody's all up in arms about AI and saying how they're just going to replace us and write our stories. I'm genuinely curious if I pump all of my work into an AI algorithm and tell it to write a Frank Martin story in my voice, what it will come up with. Because I feel like I'm so all over the map that I just don't know. When people ask me what's my voice, I don't.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go.
No, I was going to say what I feel most comfortable with is a guy like Wally, like from that book, Fourth Wallflower. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's sarcastic, a little bit of witty. And I like having characters that get to say things that I wouldn't normally say. I like that outlet where I can give them a voice when a voice outside of myself. Be like, it's not me, it's this asshole who's saying that stuff. So that's always fun to do.
Yeah. So do you find yourself gravitating to recurring themes in your work? Or I know the genres change and the styles change, but what about the themes?
I don't. Okay. However, people that have read my work say they found stuff.
Okay.
Which is very interesting for me as a writer, because I'm not doing this on purpose. Yeah. I'm just writing stories. And they say, Frank, you have stories of placing characters in uncomfortable situations. And I'm like, okay. So like you said, the Macabre Motel, that's an uncomfortable situation. A guy going to a motel with a bunch of weird people. They don't let him leave.
Yeah.
I did the Polar Paradox, which is a bunch of explorers. They go on a rescue mission under the sea ice in Antarctica, where they're filled with a bunch of weird creatures, and it's a dangerous, uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
I have Pipe Creepers, which is another weird horror story where plumbers get into a Lovecraftian adventure in an old woman's creepy basement. So that was a trend. Somebody who's read my work says, Frank, I've noticed this about you. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool that somebody notices something that I do that I don't notice myself.
So do you think about theme, or you just don't use the same themes, or is theme not really a theme?
For me, theme is the most important building block of storytelling.
Okay.
That's what grounds the work. That's what makes the connection with the reader. I mean, I'm making a book about farts, so it's hard to have a very profound theme when it comes to that stuff. But I can still weave a serious theme in that silly all ages comedy about family. It's about a boy who's farting and terrorizing his family. And through that theme of family, you can form a connection with the reader.
Yeah.
So for me, theme is the most important thing. I'll always put that, or try to put that, front and center, but I'm not trying to carry a theme from one unrelated work to the next.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So a couple more questions before we talk about, what'd you call it? The fourth wallflower?
The fourth wallflower.
Before we talk about that, I have a couple more questions. Who are some of your biggest influences?
Oh, comic wise,
just anything.
Anything. I like giving.
Okay, not any. The way you say anything makes me think I should.
I get a lot of inspiration from Jenna Jameson. Her work is phenomenal. She puts everything all in her performances. No.
Okay, I'm like, wait, hold on.
The director, Danny Boyle.
Okay.
The reason he's an inspiration for me, or an influence for me, is not the work itself. He's done Slumdog Millionaire. He's done Sunshine, 28 Days Later. If you look at his body of work, it's all over the map, like kind of like me. And I heard him in an interview once. He said, look, I want to never make the same story twice. I want to put my mark on a particular story, whether it be, I want to write my vampire story. I want to write my hard sci-fi story. I want to write my World War II story. So once I put my mark on each one of these different subjects, it I just like it because it kind of stretches my imagination, it stretches my creativity. And hear him say that, I was like, yeah, this guy is all over the place. He kind of directs what he wants. He likes to challenge himself, and I love that mindset.
Yeah, yeah. I really thought you was gonna say Neil Gaiman.
Before you, I was gonna say Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman. Before you said outside, it could be anybody. So,
yeah.
But yes, those I was gonna go for the big dogs, the two goats, Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman.
Because Neil Gaiman has that, you know, he'll do a story over here that's like this, and he'll switch it up and do this. That's why I thought you were gonna say Neil Gaiman.
You know what he is? He's so whimsical with his writing and fluid and his storytelling that it's just like, I don't know, it's like jazz when he writes. You know, he's just he gets in a groove, and I really dig that about him.
Have you watched his masterclass? Side note,
I have not, but I heard I've heard people say about it, I could watch this guy talk about writing all day long.
It's so good. Like he's just he's a monster. Like in a good way. He's a monster. Like he's incredible. Okay, so now let's go to the fourth wallflower. Okay. And I think the first question I want to ask you, this is a question I had before I read the fourth wallflower, but I feel like we can take this project and you can answer this question based on this project, right? So can you take me through what your process is like from idea to that script, right? And I know it's different. I know it's different for every project, but what was it like for this one?
The fourth wallflower is a very interesting project. So to give everybody the idea of the premise, the basic idea is a comic creator is creating a comic character on the page, and the character is self-aware from the very beginning. He knows he's a comic creator. He knows he's a comic writer. He's talking with his creator. He's asking his creator, what type of story is this? He's asking what. So it's a very meta, self-aware book. And this was, I don't want to say it was a challenge to write, but it was definitely a process, because I started with the initial idea. Comic character wants to communicate with his creator. And it's weird because that's how the story unfolds. We don't know what the story is, and the creator is coming up with it in real time with Wally as he's alive in the story. So so I was kind of writing it as I was figuring out what the story is. And I thought about, well, what is the elements of stories? You know, we need a plot, we need a setting, we need a theme. And the theme is represented through color here, where I play around with it a little bit. So I had to basically check off all these boxes on different pages as I built the story. And eventually the story falls into a groove where it's a rom-com, technically, I would call it the genre. But it's so far meta that it's beyond a rom-com. Yeah, if that makes sense. It's like, you know what I'm talking about, but unless you read it, it's hard to kind of describe. So once it falls into that rom-com groove, the story kind of unfolds more naturally. But yeah, I was basically building those first couple pages as a story on the page, which is fun. It's cool. I had a blast with it.
So do you outline it all? Or is that like a part of your process?
I am, so in novel terms, we have plotters and pantsers, right?
For sure.
Pantsers are guys that just write by the seat of their pants, and plotters plot everything out. I'm definitely a plotter. So I can't start writing a script. I mean, I can, but for my scripts, I want everything planned out from beginning to end. Things might change from page to page, but for the most part, I have a beginning, middle, and end. And I know every page beat before I start scripting.
And so you did that for this one too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
I pretty much did. But I still went through that process of that checklist of, okay, this page we're doing this page we're going to do this. And I didn't want to just start scripting right away without knowing where I'm going to go with this thing. Because I think that's when you run into trouble. Is when you have a good, strong idea, but not a good, strong story yet. Yeah. And if you start scripting before you have that strong story, you might go down a path that you're like, this isn't what I want this to be, you know? Yeah. And I there was a lot of danger of that happening with this story because it's just so weird and abstract. Right. So I really wanted to be on that solid storytelling ground before I started scripting.
Yeah, absolutely. Nadia says, rom-coms are my favorite comfort stories.
I think this is a good comfort story.
I agree.
It's definitely a good comfort story. Like I said, it's weird. It's for. I know people say what's your target audience? They say never say comic readers because you need to niche it down. You need to figure out who a particular story is for in order to sell it. But I really believe that if you enjoy comics, if you love comics, you're going to get a kick out of this story.
Yeah. No, I agree. So let me ask you this: that initial idea, a comic created person talking to their creator, their comic creator, right? What about that idea itself screamed at you when you first had the idea?
So to go back to our discussion about theme, right? I needed a solid theme for this book. And once I nailed the theme, it was a lot easier to tell the story.
Yeah.
And I thought about comic characters and what their struggles are. And if you were a comic character and you knew you were a comic character, what would be your biggest hang up in life? And your biggest hang up in life is you don't get to tell your own story.
Right.
Somebody else is telling your story.
Right.
Somebody else is dictating what you're saying, what you're going to do on the next page. And so that concept of free will versus predetermination became the theme of the story, and how Wally, the main character, how he grasps it and how he talks to his creator, who is essentially controlling his predestiny, So that's how I approach that comic character, comic creator dynamic and relationship.
Yeah. No, that's dope. And you said that's going to be on Kickstarter July 1st.
July 1st, yeah.
Okay. So is this not the same as the fart book? You have There's another book, right?
So I do 6 launches a year, or I try to at least. I've done 3.
6 launches. Sheesh.
Yeah. So I have 3 left. One is the 4th Wallflower, which is in July. Then the 2 remaining ones are the Macabre Motel sequel and my all ages comedy called The Fart Bomb, which is going to be fun. I'll enjoy doing all ages books because I haven't done a whole lot, but I like them because the way I write them legitimately as all ages. They're not children's books; they're all ages books. So as I'm scripting The Fart Bomb, I'm laughing to myself because I find it hilarious. So it's something that a kid will find funny, and I think an adult would find funny. So when I pitch it, I could pitch it to anybody and be confident that they'll like it.
Yeah. So what is your time management like? Like how do you juggle? I mean, 6 books a year or 6 Kickstarters a year, right? How do you juggle and manage and navigate all these different projects?
I try not to waste minutes.
Okay.
I try to steal minutes. I do. So I'm constantly writing on my phone. I use a lot of voice to text.
Okay.
If I have to walk to school to pick up my kids, that's 10 minutes I could write on my phone. If I'm standing in line in the grocery store, sometimes I write a novel a sentence at a time.
Wow.
And it drives my wife crazy because she's like, I want to sit down and watch a show tonight. I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking I can let her this book while I'm watching a show. She's like, put the computer down. I'm like,
right.
So I try to multitask. I try to steal as many minutes as I can in order to get things done.
Yeah.
But if that's what it takes. And you know what? Like I said, the challenge and the work motivates me. So it never feels like work when I'm doing it.
Right.
So it's great. I always feel weird when I see comic creators saying, I worked 40 hours on my comic this week. I'm like, you're keeping count? Like, I don't, it's just, I just assume that if I'm awake, I'm working on something.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And I hear people talk about burnout all the time. I feel fortunate in that comics don't burn me out. Writing doesn't burn me out. My kids burn me out. My family burns me out. Those like doing household chores burns me out. This doesn't burn me out.
He said my family 3 days before Father's Day. He said my family burns me out.
Oh, my daughter says, do you want to know what I got you for Father's Day? I said, what, a break from you? So,
a break, right?
Yeah, that's. You don't have to buy me anything. Just don't talk to me for a day. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: what is your? I feel like I know what you're gonna say, but I'm gonna ask anyway. What's your ultimate goal as a storyteller?
To be considered the greatest writer of all time.
Talk heavy, Frank. Let's go, Frank.
I know. What is my great? I don't. The goal as a writer, I want to tell good stories. I don't know. I want people to like them. I mean, as much as I say I don't write for other people, I don't. But I still.
But you do.
Writers are vain. We love to hear people like our stuff. Be like, I like writing stuff for me, and then hearing other people say they like it. You know what? So it's. There's nothing wrong with admitting
that. There's two phases, right? There's two phases. When I first start to write something, I'm doing it for myself. I'm putting it together, and I'm like, look, this is for me. I love this, right? And then the next phase is, I need you to love this too.
Kinda.
I love it, and now I need you to.
I have some friends who give me some tough love where I'll write a book, I'll put it on Kickstarter, and I'll be like, I want more backers. And they're like, Frank, you wrote a weird freaking story. I'll be like, I don't care. I want them to like it.
Right.
That's just how we are. So, we loved love, even though we don't admit it.
For sure. I think for me, I've gotten to a place where it's like I don't necessarily need everybody to love it. I just need to find those people who will. You know.
You know what? I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I agree. Not every story I write is going to be loved by everyone, but I at least want to write a story that at least everyone is going to love, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I want everybody in the world to say, what's your favorite Frank Martin story? And to have an answer.
Yeah. That's heavy. I like that. What are you most proud of so far in your career?
What am I most proud of so far in my career? You know what? I don't have a whole lot of successes that I can point to and say, like, that's what I'm most proud of. But I would say what I'm most proud of are the works that my kids can look at and say, I inspired my dad to write this. Like The Fart Bomb was inspired by my 6-year-old son, and the book is actually my family. You know, I have my youngest, I have a middle daughter and an older son, and my wife and me, and that's the family in The Fart Bomb. In January, the first book I launched this year was called Where the Nightmares Are. It was a horror spin on Where the Wild Things Are, but it's an all ages horror book, and I gender swapped the main character from a boy to a girl who was modeled on my daughter, who loves horror movies, absolutely adores them. And I told her that, you were my inspiration for this character, and she loves the book. She reads it, she shows it to her friends with pride. I would say that's what was your question? The greatest successes or the things
what are you most proud of?
That's what I'm most proud of, is when she holds up that book to somebody and says, that's supposed to be me in the book. You know what? I dig that, because I write so much stuff that they're like, okay, that's nice. And then they go back to playing the game. Yeah. So to hear them interested in the things that I put out. Yeah. I like that. I'm proud of that.
Man, just to piggyback off of that, I was so in a past life, like years and years ago, I was making music, right? And 10 years ago now, I put out a EP, right? It's got 5 songs on it. And the other day I'm riding in the car, my kids are like, they asked me something about music. And they're like, Daddy, you made music? And I was like, yeah, so I play it for them. And I played them the 5 songs, and they're like, do you have more? Like, is there more music? And I'm like, well, I have one other song that's not on there. I play that. And they're like, wow, your music is great. And I'm just like, this is why I do this, right? Like, this is it. Right. My kids can say, my dad made some stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I think as simple as that is, like, that really does feel incredible. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it feels incredible. It also teaches them a good lesson, that, like, just if you like something, just do it. Just do it. Make something. Have a good time. You know?
For sure. Okay, before we get out of here, I have 5 questions that I always end with. The first one is, what's one book that everyone should read?
What's one book that everyone should read? I'm going to give a terrible answer, but I'm going to say Dune.
Oh, my goodness. I got to ask why on that. Why Dune?
It's my favorite book. I don't know.
Dune is your favorite book?
I love that book, yeah.
Wow. We're going to have to talk about that offline. Okay.
What's why? You know what? I'll change my answer now. I don't like your reaction.
No.
Why
No take backs. No
you know
take
what it
backs.
was? It's just filled with so much stuff from a storytelling standpoint. You know, people say Dune inspired Star Wars. It did, but it's got a lot of like Game of Thrones in it too. You know, a lot of political intrigue, a lot of mysticism, a lot of war, a lot of action. It's jam packed with so much stuff that I kind of dug it, and I get it why people, it's not everybody's jam, but it's such an epic from beginning to end that I don't know, give it a shot.
And you know, that's one of the things that I thought as I was reading it. I'm like, you know, this is like Star Wars, this is like Game of Thrones, this is like Wheel of Time, this is like Lord of the Rings, this is like all those epic like fantasies of like the 90s, right?
Yeah.
It's like the DNA of Dune is in this. You know what I'm saying? Like
I also love the story behind it because Frank Herbert, he couldn't find a publisher for it at all. And he was at the point where he was like, I don't, and then, you know, I felt this way when I first started writing. I'm like, I don't care who wants to publish this first book I wrote. I just want to put it out there. And he eventually found, I think the original publisher, they specialized in publishing automotive manuals, you know?
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
and they were like, we'll put it out. And he's like, yeah, go for it. And look at it. It's become like, people consider one of the greatest sci-fi works ever. So it's that story, the behind the scenes story too.
Yeah.
It's also a cautionary tale in that if you listen to his children talk about him, they're like, there were times when dad shut the door and he never saw him, you know? Right. So the fact that madness to create something that withstood the test of time pushed his family away in the process. It's just, I find the whole thing around it interesting.
For sure. What's one word you want your legacy to be described as?
One word to have. What's the word? I have the word. I'm just trying to think about it.
Yeah, take your time. It's all good.
I know the word. It's not coming to me. Let's go on to the next one.
Okay. What's one thing that you would change about your creative journey?
One thing I would change about my creative journey: start sooner. I mean, I've always been writing, but I've never buckled down and tried to make a career of it. I would have started that way sooner.
I feel like this goes hand in hand with what you just said, but what's one piece of advice you would give your younger self? Start sooner.
Start sooner. Read more.
Okay.
That would be a good one. I read a lot of comics growing up, so I feel more confident in my comic storytelling. I didn't read as much prose, and I write prose. And when I was young and stupid, I used to take pride in that. Be like, I'm a writer, but I never read anything. Be like, you're an idiot. You need to read more. So,
So, can we circle back to this? I have one more question, but I really want to get this legacy question in here too. You know that word yet? You know what that word is?
I'm trying to look it up. Whimsical is a close one.
You said whimsical?
I like whimsical. Yeah.
Okay.
But what
was it?
What are they called?
Liberated.
No, that's not it. Damn it. I'm gonna message you later on Facebook.
Okay. I'll make sure I report back to the community. This is Frank Martin's word for his legacy. Okay. My last question. What's one thing that you want everyone who hears or sees this to know?
From a reader standpoint or a writer standpoint?
Just whatever comes to your mind. As a man, as a dad, it doesn't matter. Whatever. What do you want people to know?
What do I want people to know?
Yeah.
We're not here forever. You know, ask the girl out, go watch the movie, ride the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Try sushi.
Yeah.
You know what? We're just here for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and you know what? The planet is billions of years old. We're not. It's going to be here long after we're gone. So stop worrying about stuff that we can't take with us when we're gone.
Yeah. Well, Frank, I just want to let you know, brother, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming through. Over the years, you have definitely been an inspiration for myself as a writer, just watching the works that you created and the Kickstarters that you run, and following your newsletter and just having brief conversations with you. I just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. I look up to you, and I'm excited to see what you do next.
Thank you. I appreciate that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To the viewers, thank you so much for being here tonight, kicking it with us, giving a little feedback and engaging with us. Definitely, Frank, where can they find you? I guess it's at Frank the Writer.
At Frank, that's my social handles. Frank the Writer is also frankthewriter.com is my website. My mailing list is the best way to keep in touch. I'm pretty regular with it. So
for sure,
if you want to know what I'm doing, that's how you find out.
Absolutely. He also has a Patreon, so definitely check that out. Nadia, thank you. This was a dope interview. Thanks for allowing us to watch and listen. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Nadia, and all the feedback and engagement that you're giving us. Appreciate you for sure. Hopefully I'll see you this weekend at the con, hopefully. Anyway, yes. Again, thank you so much, Frank. To everybody else, if you like this, please hit the like button, share this with somebody, subscribe to the channel. I do this every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. I think I might change my time because I'm really feeling this, 7 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? The sun is still out.
It's nice having the sun out, right?
Yeah. So I may change my time a little bit. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, like, subscribe, share. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and I will see you soon. As always, I love you. Peace.